there's a new generation that's now being made aware of things that Imam Musa, Rahimullah, was not only experiencing being on the front lines, and through that experience, he was trying to teach us and expose us to geopolitical issues that we may, at any other time, as we see with other communities, not be privy to or not be aware of. But because he was exposed, because he was, like I said, on the front lines, he taught through his experience. And so, and a lot of us here, or a few of us here, were able to go on that ride with him. And so I want to start with an ayat from Quran in Surah Al-Azhar, where Allah says, among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with Allah. Of them, some have completed their vow to the extreme, and some still wait, but they have never changed their determination in the least. That Allah may reward the men of truth for their truth and punishment. The hypocrites, if they be his will, or turn to them in mercy, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. So, when we're talking about this war, we're looking at it from the standpoint that Iran has been preparing for this since the revolution. Okay? When we look, some of us have read Sun Tzu, and Sun Tzu says, know yourself, know your enemy. 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. Okay, so if we look at the history, we're looking at, well, let's start in 1953 with Operation Ajax, which is one of the first CIA coups that they enacted, which was against Iran. 1953, they overthrow Mohammad Mossadegh. Why do they overthrow Mohammad Mossadegh? Because he wants to nationalize their oil. He wants to benefit his people with their resources. Okay? You know, BP, British Petroleum, was in Iran. You know, the Shah was a puppet of Western powers. And so, when Mohammad Mossadegh makes the decision to nationalize their resources, this becomes a problem. Not to take all day, the CIA has a coup. They get rid of Mossadegh. They establish the Shah in power. Okay? So from 53 to 79, he's in power. And he's in power with a brutal hand. Imam Musa used to talk about, I mean, we're witnessing this exactly when we think about ICE and what's going on, a secret type of police. We think about the Stasi system in Germany, a surveillance type police state in Germany that constantly surveil their citizens. This is what we're witnessing now, right here. So, enter Imam Khomeini, who becomes the ideologue of the revolution in '79. He comes up with this idea of Vilayatul Faqih, the guardianship of the just movement. And with this, basically, we're talking about Mutaki leadership. And this Mutaki, through this Mutaki leadership, he's able to create the environment, create the mentality where the Iranians now can come together. He's been in exile in Iraq, in Paris, and how he's able to put his ideas out through tape that he's sending from his exile to Iran, to the masjids. One of the things that Imam Musa would remind us of is that with Iran being a Muslim country, with Allah's protection, the one thing that the Shah didn't really mess with was the masajid. And so, because of that, he was able to send tapes, cassette tapes. And they would record these cassette tapes, and they would pass them out. And through these cassette tapes, the idea spread his idea spread about changing the government and having this revolution. So, from that, yes, 1979, we have a revolution. And so, when we look at the parallel between Iran and Masjid al-Islam, there are definitely similar parallels. The first masjid that Imam Musa established in Oakland was established right after the revolution. The revolution happened in '79. The masjid opened in '80. So, just kind of speeding up, what we're talking about is revolution and revolutionaries. When we look at Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, here he is with Thomas Sankara at the top. At the bottom, we know, well, first of all, Thomas Sankara assassinated. Why? Because he wanted to use his resources for his own people. Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi, assassinated, stabbed in his private parts, in his record. Okay? Hillary Clinton says, we came, we saw, he died, and started laughing. Okay? So, they called him the King of Africa. Why? Because he was funding, he was having free schools, he was having free education. If you got married, you got a house, or you got whatever. So, this becomes a threat. Let's not forget, before the revolution in Iran, there was a high illiteracy rate. Okay? After the revolution now, we're talking, women are highly educated, probably more than men, tops in the university. Okay? Because now you're not under the thumb of a dictator who is only out for himself. They're calling the questions that I'm getting, they're portraying Khamenei as a dictator. Okay? He's not a dictator. He's a revolutionary who has been constantly under certain types of sabotage, certain types of infiltration. After the war, after the revolution in '79, what happened? There's a war in '80, backed by the U.S. and all the, well, let's say the rest of the world except Syria and Libya against Iran. So you have a revolution, and now you have to fight a war. Inexperienced, don't know how to work the weapons that you have now, that are now in your hands. After the war, what we're witnessing now happens in, where was it? In what's called the 7th of Tier, where there was a bombing that killed 70 major or top-level scholars and intellectuals and leaders. Not to mention the sanctions, the freezing of assets. So when we're talking about know yourself, know your enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories, we're seeing that Allah has prepared them through this struggle, or through these struggles, through these events, for what's happening now. Now everybody is looking at what's going on and cheering for Iran. Why are they cheering for Iran? Because they've seen them survive these sanctions. They've witnessed them constantly be harassed by the major monster that now everybody is witnessing. We're talking about the Zionists, is a cancer to humanity. And so even though people won't say it, or whether being afraid to say it, or being paid not to say it, whatever the case may be, now you have Iran, who's been using with strategic patience, remaining on the defense, whatever you want to call it. You just keep clicking, you just keep poking. And now, here we are. And so, 2016, the Times of Israel, Zionists backed Trump to retain global power, says VC man. Okay? It's 2016. Now, they're quoting Imam Ayyoob. Muslims must rescue poor, dumb American people. Zionists brought Donald Trump to the White House and did so in order to maintain their global power. A Muslim hate cleric charged in a speech at Washington, D.C. mass shooting. Now, this is 2016. Everybody knows that now. So when he's trying to educate not just us sitting here with these long footballs, but he's trying to get the leadership of the Muslims to establish a movement for the purpose of dealing with the Zionists. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But, well, the man they love to hate, talking about the Zionists. You know who this is? Ahmadinejad. When you look at, when we talk about Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, we're talking about somebody that the Zionists couldn't stand because he was constantly articulating their response or their responsibility in keeping Iran in a position of servitude. And so we're mentioning him because he was assassinated the same day that Ali Imam Ayyoob was assassinated. The point is, the community has been on the front line. Okay? This is another picture. Now, Imam Musa was Ayatollah Khamenei. You showed this picture before in football. See, we have to understand that Imam Musa was bringing us along. He was educating us. He was showing us not only how we in the Southeast were actually a part of this global struggle against oppression. He was inspiring us through his education, through his training, through his teaching, that if he could do it during his time, we can do it in our time. In our time is now. And so, not only did he leave the long khutbahs, the CDs and DVDs, but we're fortunate to have a lot of his notes, a lot of the thoughts that he was putting down at different times. And when that article was 2016, this is February 20, 2016. And he's saying, total war, West versus Iran. Iran is winning. He says, long-range success is on our side. He always talked about longevity. He always talked about this is going to be a protracted struggle. This is going to be an evolutionary process. So you're going to start with sticks and stones, then you're going to evolve. Your technology is going to evolve. You're going to go from you're going to have an army that is always on the defensive to a peer competitor. And this is what we're witnessing. Iran is now at the level where they can fight mano a mano. And this is what the people are seeing. He says, past, we asked the question, or he asked the question, was this possible? Meaning, they were getting hit every year with some type of attack. They're killing scientists. They're killing, having a war at this point. They're blowing up. They're having sabotage events, whatever the case may be. So the question was, can we survive? Can we continue to build? Can we continue to evolve? And this is what we're witnessing. It says, they're not alone. What he says. Strategic alliance. Iraq, Syria, Russia, Lebanon. What just happened? What are we witnessing? Lebanon, Yemen have now come to assist Iran against the Zionist monster that we've all been witnessing, we've all been talking about, we've all been complaining about. Now we're seeing someone who Allah has been preparing for this moment. What seems like, they're already victorious. By killing or assassinating Ayatollah Khamenei, That right there was a victory. What did they say? He didn't run and hide. They assassinated him in his home. He knew that his time was coming. And because of this concept, or because of this culture that the Shia have of martyrdom, remember, Imam Ali was assassinated during Ramadan. So when you put the history of Islam that I call historical awareness, I ask myself the question, or we should ask ourselves the question, what side of history are we going to be on? Do we want to be on? Or do we want to be on the side of the oppressed, or do we want to be on the side of the oppressed? This is this historical awareness that we have to have. And we should be asking ourselves right now that we're actually witnessing Muslims joining the Zionists against Iran, the one fighting Iran, the one who has been prepared to fight them, that they watched go through the ups, go through the struggle, go through the sacrifices to get to this point. Still surviving. What does Allah say? Say not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead. No, they are alive. But you perceive it not, but we perceive it not. World, and this is what's happening now. World on the sidelines, watching, cheering for Islamic Republic. All you gotta do is go on the internet. They got white people on the internet talking about Iran, please wipe Israel off the face of the earth. These are non-Muslims because they've been witnessing this Israeli first policy. They've been witnessing the promotion of debauchery in the media, in the Epstein files. So people always need a model, like we always talk about. They always need a model who is going to be the example of enjoying the right and forbidding the wrong. So if it takes an Iran who goes through a war where everybody is against you, this is nothing. Because you know who your enemy is, and you're going to prepare for that enemy. You're going to prepare for the big monster. You're not going to prepare for Israel. You're going to prepare for the U.S. And this is what we're witnessing. This is what they don't understand. And so, in talking about this subject, in talking about our role and our experience, this is the example that we take. This is the example that I have to part of this historical awareness. Imam Musa always talks about forecasting. Forecasting is very important, and it's what he was trying to teach us, because that allows us, it allows us to look at patterns. It allows us to be inspired when we see things that, yeah, I've seen this before. I've read this before. I'm not surprised. Because we constantly see Iran evolve and go through so many struggles to prepare them for this moment. It just happens to be in our time. Now the question is, what are we going to do? How are we going to prepare? The whole point of this talk is that this represented unity. It's Sunni and Shia coming together to deal with the oppressed, to deal with those who have been victimized by the Zionist entity. And don't let me forget Anwar al-Awlaki. They killed Imam Ayyoob wife, grandchildren, bodyguards. So they did the same with Anwar al-Awlaki. They put you out there, they make you an example to the Ummah, they use you, and then they take you out. So this is to them, this is equal opportunity killing. If you don't submit, if you want to use your resources for the benefit of your people, you're the enemy. You're the dictator. You're the problem. It's out in the open now. So like I said, what are we prepared to do? Use our imagination. Use our visualization. Change our attitude. Focus on who the problem is and find solutions. Have something called possibility thinking. This is why we're here. Because under constant pressure, just like Iran, we were able to maintain a masjid, establish a community, maintain a masjid, buy property, and still speak out against the injustices that not only the Muslims experience, but humanity has experienced. This isn't a Muslim issue anymore. Although the Muslims are being used as the target and the example, this is a human issue. And so this has been our story. For certain brothers that's in here, this has been our story. This has been our journey through the experiences and through the efforts of Imam Muslim. So I encourage you to do your research on Iran, learn the history, make the parallels. This happens to all independent-seeking countries or independent-seeking leaders. And so this shouldn't be a surprise. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.